This is Gagru Live on Facebook. Today we also have, you could see, a wonderful young man. He's just been promoted to Executive Director. And so, a little bit about ANC. I'm sure most of you know. ANC stands for Armenian National Committee for America. And so today we're talking about the Western region. And is really the largest, the most influential organization in United States. And this one is in Western United States. And so Armen Sahakyan is young, smart, handsome. He got everything. He has a master's degree in international relations and international economy. He has a bachelor's degree in international politics and political economy. He worked with World Bank, the permanent mission of Armenia in United Nations, as well as European Institute. So he okay, sorry, we just got some technical problem, and so our guest is Armen Sahakyan. He's just promoted to Executive Director, and he's part of ANC, and you probably saw the other video. The ANC is the largest organization in the United States and also worldwide. They have branches everywhere. There is Armenia, there is ANC. And so we wanna talk to Armen Sahakyan today about his new position. So Armen, welcome to Gagru.net. I'm sorry for that interruption, but in this real world, everything happened. Please introduce yourself. Tell us your background, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, firstly, let me thank you, Mr. Sarkisian, for inviting me to Gagru.net. It's a pleasure to be on your show. And yeah, just to introduce myself, I'm Armen Sahakyan. I'm the Executive Director of the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region Office. And prior to this, actually, I was leading the ANCA Eastern Region Office for 4 years. And since high school, actually, I've been involved with the ANCA. So so it's been a long time. I've been a volunteer on the ground in many chapters. I've done the summer internship program, the Leo Sarkisian internship program in Washington, D.C. I've done the Capital Gateway program. And so I've had a long-standing relationship and involvement in the Armenian cause. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure to many, many other Armenians as well. And I'm just so privileged and feel lucky that I get to pursue this as a career, as my day job, because it's something that I'm very passionate about, our national cause, and pursuing the interests and upholding the demands of our nation, both here in the Western United States and also, as you mentioned, globally through our wide network of different organizations.
So obviously, ANC is not like corporate America. They will recruit people, say, we're looking for executive director, and here is the qualification. So you have to work yourself through the trenches, make yourself up. So that's how you did.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I'm going to repeat myself here, but again, I actually went to high school in Iowa at the time for a year. And that was at the time one of the states that still had not recognized the Armenian genocide. Thankfully, it is already through many years of efforts ever since. But that's when I contacted the ANCA. I said, I am a student here. This state has not recognized and properly commemorated, acknowledged, and condemned the Armenian genocide. So what can we do? And so the rest is basically history from there on. But one credit I'll give to the organization is, they were very responsive. I got a response back within a couple of hours, and they were more than willing and happy to assist me with whatever I needed to get the job done. And that's something in the ethos of the organization, and that's something that I currently, as the executive director, I'm certainly trying to build upon and make sure that we are down in the trenches, as you mentioned, with our people, not only here in LA, but throughout the Western region. We cover 19 states and over 28 chapters all throughout. And so it is our job from here to make sure that we're responsive to our grassroots advocates, to our activists, to our chapter leadership, to make sure that our job gets done all throughout the United States.
So when Armen Sahakyan wake up in the morning, what do he think? What I'm gonna do today?
Well, we have many initiatives happening right now. The most upcoming one actually is a road trip that we're organizing to the northwest of the United States. So starting this Sunday, we will be doing a road trip in 4 states and 5 cities. So we'll be going to Seattle, Portland, Boise, Twin Falls, and Salt Lake City. We have our communities there, obviously, and of different sizes and varying levels of activism. So our job as ANCA Western Region is we want to go and meet with our community on the ground in their home states, in their home cities, and talk about the work of the ANCA, as well as how individuals can get involved with the Armenian cause, both within the ANCA structure, but also it doesn't have to be necessarily through us. This is obviously a democratic country. Citizens here are granted many rights and privileges among their responsibilities as well. And so we just want to educate our community about their civic responsibility and some of the opportunities available to them here in the United States that obviously other countries may not necessarily provide to their citizens, and how they, even on an individual basis, can very much make a big difference in the Armenian life, both in the United States, as well as help our compatriots in Armenia and in Artsakh. So that's sort of the latest happening right now, but we also are working currently as we speak on this ethnic studies model curriculum with the California Department of Education. In the initial draft, the Armenians have been left out together with the Jews, Greeks, and other groups as well. And so we are also very much engaged on that front, making sure that the Armenians are included in the final version of the model curriculum so that students in California get to learn about the Armenian experience, about the Armenian genocide, the American heroic efforts through the Near East Relief Organization in saving hundreds of thousands of Armenians and providing home and shelter here in the United States. So there is many different things. No single day is similar to the other. And that's something that I very much appreciate about this job, but it's also obviously a challenge. It's not a monotonous job. Sometimes you're thrown things that you would never expect, and you just have to deal with it with the limited resources and capabilities that we have here. But I think we're managing pretty well. This is a very much dedicated team of both staff and board and volunteers, thousands of them throughout the United States. And so I feel lucky that I can rely on such a huge network, and we really get things done. And so that's something very gratifying to me.
So Western region is headed by Nora Hovsepian. She is the chairman, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nora Hovsepian has been the chairwoman of the ANCA Western Region since 2011 or 2012. So she's a longtime leader in the community, and for the past 7-8 years, she's been also the chairwoman of the ANCA Western Region.
She's an amazing woman. She was one time here, we interviewed, and I'm still waiting for her to come back and update us on her trip, because she took some American legislator with her to Yerevan and Armenia. And so, Nora, we're waiting for you. Yeah.
I'll get it on to her.
Yeah, she's great. She's, in fact, she had one picture with the fist. I just put that one on, and also we have Armen Sahakyan is the East Coast in Washington, is another Armenian treasure. He's doing great job in there.
Yes.
Now, yesterday, we had long conversation with Armen Sahakyan. I'm sure you know him. His concern was, he said, we'll have a generation 100 years from now, if for some reason, miracle reason, Turkey decided, says, Armenians, we're going to give you some of those provinces like Van, Bitlis, Erzurum. Will that generation 100 years from now remember those cities or province name? So you are current generation. Do you think you guys gonna pass those torch to the next generation?
I think we will. Armenians have not had a statehood for hundreds of years since the collapse of our kingdom in the Middle Ages in Kilikia. And yet we kept that fire alive inside our hearts. And, eventually we were able to declare our independence from the Russian Empire back in 1918, and again from the communist rule in 1991. And so I think our nation has thousands of years of history. We have gone through tremendous amounts of hardships and challenges, and we've been able to overcome them. We've been proven to have a very strong perseverance, and I think that tradition of passing on the memories and the ideals and traditions onto the next generation is very strong in the Armenian nation. And I'm only certain that my generation, just like the ones that would follow us, will be living true to that ideal and be able to pass that on forward. If the past is any testament, I think we are in good hands.
Yeah, well, that's really good. That's most Armenian older intellectuals. That's what number one they come, because Harut generation, they kept this flame going, and also by writing and books, and Armenian just lost one of their best brother Derderian, his name was. So he did lots of research, and lots of people now depend on his writing. Always they refer to his books and his research. And so we're hoping that these things will continue, and that's what they are concerned, most of those intellectuals, today's intellectuals.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a legitimate concern. I think every generation needs to be concerned about the legacy and passing on the knowledge and the wisdom and the ideals onto the next. And so I think it's only natural that every generation would be worried about the future, because without that, we would not be able to chart forward the new strategy or the new vision for the future. And I'm sure like when my generation's time comes, we will probably be having the same conversations and the same concerns. And every age, especially now with every year or every decade with new technologies and immense challenges and changes coming to the world, this problem is only going to be exacerbated, but it's also going to come with new opportunities, with more advanced technologies, more convenient ways of communication and travel. I think this might also shed a new era for Armenia and for the Armenian nation to reconnect better with the homeland and be able to uphold and upkeep the roots and our nationhood in an easier manner. It's just a matter of how do we think about this, and how successful are we in making sure that these strategies or this vision ends up being implemented.
On the front line of dealing a country like United States, big and powerful, and we had this discussion yesterday, and always I hammer this on anybody Armenian. In fact, I even lectured the Hellenic chairman, James, there at the Assyrian things. Is it time that Armenian in America shift to executive branch, put more emphasis on executive branch, and then we're just stuck with the Congress? Congress, it's good. I'm not saying they're doing some stuff, but there are 530 men, women in Congress. It's an old, and it's a bureaucratic. But in executive, there is one man, and the one man could do, like, whether you like or hate Trump, whatever he said, he did. He decided, I'm going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. He did. But the Congress cannot do those things. They just talk and legislation and fight each other, and it doesn't happen. So isn't it like an election 2020, it's coming, that ANC and Armenians and Assyrian and Greek sort of unite and pick up, and whatever you guys decide, but whether Republican or Democrat, pick up a president and put all your eggs in that basket and try see maybe something could happen. But so what do you say? Isn't that time for, because we did lots of talk, we did marketing. It's time for selling the product. And so we have to go to the next step of taking action, real action. Your thought?
Sure. I mean, you are raising a very valid point. I'll only say that for decades, the ANC, of course, has engaged with the executive branch as much as it has engaged with the legislative branch, as well as the judicial branch as well, because we've brought up, I mean, I'm sure you would have talked with Mr. Sahakyan about some of the court cases. But that being aside, putting that aside, as much as Congress may be bureaucratic, I think the executive branch is much more bureaucratic, because for you to get to the president, normally you would have to go through many chains of command. And even when you get to the president, he has a whole host of advisors around him that are trying to lobby him against. Also, if you look into the archives of the 80s and the 90s even, the Armenian community was so powerful that the United States presidents would actually show up at our gala banquets. I've seen photos of, for example, President George H.W. Bush, the first, who attended the gala in the 90s. And so the Armenian community for the longest time has worked with the executive branch. Obviously, for example, the foreign assistance that goes to Armenia through the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, that's a part of the executive branch. And so we have engaged with them for the longest time to ensure that adequate amount of aid is allocated for both Armenia and Artsakh, which is particularly important to note. When President Obama, as a candidate, was running for office, my predecessor to the Eastern Region position, Karime Birazyan, actually asked him about his position on the Armenian genocide, and he did unequivocally talk about the need to recognize it as such for the United States. And so we have engaged with the executive branch. Can we do more? Of course. But one thing I'll note here is that the Congress is the closest branch of government to the citizenry. Yeah. And so we as voters have direct oversight and direct control over our elected representatives, because we get to cast our vote and decide if they're going to stay in office or out. And so for us as Armenian Americans or any other ethnic or religious or other minority group, the Congress is the easiest way to get certain things done. The executive branch is kind of shielded from that. They are not necessarily answerable to the people. They are more answerable to the Congress. And so direct oversight of Congress over the executive branch also is an important point to mention here. For example, when the different department heads show up in Congress to testify in front of different committees, that's how, for example, we get to get some of our priorities across. When a U.S. ambassador is up for nomination in the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee is the one asking them questions, grilling them, and that's where we make sure that Armenian interests are also upheld. So, I mean, this is a long way of saying that we engage both with the congressional and executive branch, but the executive branch is unique in the sense that it's shielded, and it's not as easy to penetrate that as the others, but we're absolutely doing our best in engaging in all the elections and kind of working all of our connections that we may have. For example, when President Reagan mentioned in his speech the Armenian genocide, that was through his speechwriter at the time, who was Armenian. And so, I mean, there are many instances I can bring up, but each administration is different, and their priorities are also different, and there is also geopolitics at play. Some of this also has to do with the politics in Armenia, in Artsakh. So it's a very complicated issue, but we are definitely thinking about this on a daily basis and trying to figure out ways by which we can pursue our cause in a more effective and efficient manner.
Great. You're just an amazing guy. You have answer for everything. Assyrian, Greek, Armenian relationship, beside meeting in an event, do you guys meet separately, and do you guys planning to create some committees, joint committees? For example, I push these things for boycotting Turkish product, like not just ANC or just Assyrian, just saying, you know, you and Assyrian leader, another get together, says, okay, here is Hagop and Sarkis, here is Saliba, and I don't know what, you know, 2-3 people from each organization get together and say, your job is to find out how we could boycott Turkish product or do some stuff. Are you guys planning to do that?
Sure. I mean, we have had, in the recent years especially, a more robust cooperation with both the Assyrian and Hellenic American organizations, both here in California and throughout the United States. We have especially, the most natural way that we started our partnership was, of course, with the commemoration events and rallies around the genocide of the Assyrians, Greeks, and Armenians, over 3 million of whom perished at the hands of the Ottoman Turkish government. And then beyond that now, and you were present, of course, at the signing ceremony of a memorandum of understanding, one of the key factors or key features that I would kind of highlight from that memorandum is the fact that, for example, the Assyrian American Association of Southern California pledged its support for the independence of the Republic of Artsakh. And similarly, we pledged our support for the right to self-determination of the Assyrians in their ancient homeland in the Nineveh Plains. And so we are kind of building upon the historical relationship of our nations and trying to bring them to the current times and to the current geopolitical challenges. And we are only going to build on this. So if there's capacity to do boycott Turkey campaigns or anything else for that matter, we are certainly open for that cooperation, and we're all for putting every hand on deck to get that done. In terms of boycotting Turkey, I also want to highlight the fact that the ANCA Western region, as well as the AYF and the All ASA, have for the longest time been engaged in what we call the Divest Turkey movement, and that is our initiative to basically try to divest all the American public funds from Turkish government bonds that are basically funding the Turkish economy, funneling money into the Turkish budget that then they use against us in lobbying efforts here in the United States as well as throughout the world. And so there is currently a bill up in the California state legislature that is going to try to do that on the California state level, but we're also exploring other avenues for cities or other entities that have invested any amount of money in Turkish government bonds to basically divest them in response to the Turkish government's refusal to properly acknowledge and serve justice for the Armenian genocide, as well as for its obstruction of justice and human rights today against its own citizens, against Syria, against Armenia, by illegally blockading Armenia and also supporting Azerbaijan in its aggression against Artsakh. And so we are very much cognizant of the fact that we need to hit where it hurts the most, to hit the pockets, to hit the finances. It's just a very complicated process. I would even mention with great sorrow in my heart that even some of the stores here in Glendale, Armenian-owned stores, are selling Turkish products. Yes. And so if we as Armenians cannot even have the foresight of not buying Turkish products in Glendale or in Armenia or go to vacations there or anything of that nature, what are we even talking about, for others to do the same? And so we need to start this with ourselves. I have personally, kind of pledged in a sense, not in any way to add extra dime or penny into the Turkish government's funds, because ultimately that is shooting ourselves in our own foot.
Yes. Well, you asked the same question that I was going to ask you, and you answered it. So both. Yeah, I think, in my opinion, Turkey only understands the pocket. And if you remember, when Russia put 6-month embargo, Turkish economy collapsed. And this is why I personally like to see some joint committee that not only in Armenia, in United States, but they go travel to Greece, Bulgaria, all those neighboring country, people, not government, because government, they don't do it. But sure. Organize people, this boycott. Like, give you an example, I have a friend in Bulgaria, and he was after me to go. I said, well, I want to go to Bangkok because, they make cheap clothes things. And no, he says, we do lots of things here. You come here. So I go in Sofia, Bulgaria, and we go around in the shops. We find only one store that makes Bulgarian stuff. The rest, every shop you go is a Turkish product. And you could stand on their highway, which goes from there to Europe, Turkish truck after truck. So Bulgaria and Greek, if we penetrate the people, organize there, that will put a dent on Turkish economy. But the government, of course, they don't do it because they have their own different interests, But slowly, surely, if you have a committee team, Greek, Armenian, Assyrian, work together and go and lobby people, things will change differently. We need to hit Turkey where it hit more, is the pocket.
Sure. I mean, I do absolutely agree with that. I will mention that there is an initiative in Glendale, on the Glendale city level, to try to make Glendale a Turkish product-free zone, which is what they call, and that's an initiative of the local Armenian organization. But we need to expand this beyond, of course. But it's very hard from the international economics perspective because you have a variety of firms and businesses, and they're all pursuing their self-interest and their bottom lines. And so when the Turkish products are more competitive in the international market, there's always going to be a buyer. When there's a cheap supply,
yes,
there's going to be the one that is going to be willing to buy that. And so it's going to be a very long and complicated process.
But it's doable.
It's doable. It's absolutely doable. We need to definitely explore that and see other avenues by which we can pursue this, because Turkey, or the Turkish government, I should specify, has to feel the heat, has to understand that there are consequences to committing international crime of unimaginable magnitude, and they have to face justice and face the consequences thereof. So, I mean, I really don't have much more to add to this. So yes, thank you for that suggestion. We'll certainly take a look at it and see what we can do.
All right. So we spent good. Sorry for that interruption, but those things really happen. We have no control over it. And thank you very much. I wish you all the best. But now we're gonna run your speech at Assyrian, so the people will see how great speech you delivered there. And I was very impressed. And so thank you very much. I wish you all the best for your new job. And we probably see you more and more down the road.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I look forward to being a guest on your show again to discuss many, many other issues and initiatives that we're working on.
Actually, we'll call on you for more as things develop. Actually, before we go, do you... Our ANC is involved in this Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan visit to Los Angeles?
Yes, we are. As many may know, the Prime Minister will be making his first visit to Los Angeles in his capacity as the leader of the government of Armenia. And so all the major community organizations here in Los Angeles are involved with assisting with the planning of his visit. There's, of course, going to be the big public event on Sunday, September the 22nd at 4 p.m. at the Grand Park in downtown Los Angeles. And more information will be released on that for our community to go and participate in this huge event. They're expecting tens of thousands to show up. And that might be one of the ways that we can show our unity as an Armenian nation and show that, we are determined to, get our cause to its finish line and do that in a very united and coordinated fashion. And so, yeah, we're involved with that. We do look forward to welcoming the Prime Minister in the biggest Armenian diaspora hub in the world. Just building on that and promoting Armenia as a beacon of democracy, freedom in the South Caucasus together with the Republic of Artsakh. So this is a new era for Armenia, for the Armenian nation, and we only look forward on capitalizing on this and making sure that our national ideals and vision is served properly.
Thank you very much. All the best to you.
All the best to you too. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so here is Armen Sahakyan's speech at the Assyrian Memorial event.
of America is an Armenian-American grassroots political organization who we have been honored to have partnered with these past several years in their march for justice. Recently, we institutionalized this partnership with a memorandum of understanding and cooperation between our two organizations. Please welcome their executive director, Armen Sahakyan.
Yeah, got it. That's fine, I'll stay.
Shalom Aleichem. Good evening, everyone. Honorable clergy, esteemed elected officials and public servants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, I wish to thank the Assyrian American Association of Southern California, our freshly minted official coalition partner, for organizing this important commemoration ceremony and inviting us to partake as well. The Armenian National Committee of America Western Region Office and the Assyrian American Association of Southern California, which was already alluded to earlier, have recently institutionalized our relations and have put forth the objectives of supporting the inalienable right to self-determination of the Assyrians in the Nineveh Plains, upholding the independence of the Republic of Artsakh, and seeking truth and justice for the genocide of 1915 as co-victim nations. Tonight, we have gathered to remember the fallen. Remembrance is an integral part of our human experience. Generations have been passing on their memories and experience on to the next to propel us all forward and to guard against the evils of the past. For the fraternal Assyrian, Greek, and Armenian nations, whose intertwined histories stretch back into the antiquity, remembrance has a special significance. From the prehistoric stone-carved tablets to the intricately illustrated manuscripts of the medieval times, to the elaborate toasts around the table and the modern digital forms of communication, we continue to pass on the wisdom, traditions, and stories of our ancestors on to the younger generations. Remembrance, however, would be meaningless without an underlying call to action. What are we to do with the stories of the past if not help us guide into the future, into a more peaceful, prosperous, and just world than the one that we inherited? And what better example to illustrate this point than that with the example of the Assyrians, Greeks, and the Armenians? Survivor nations, victorious nations that despite being subjected to the most vile and gruesome of crimes, the international crime of genocide, rose from the ashes and the dust of the Syrian desert, animated by the stories of the past, with the blood of their proud tribes throbbing through their veins, with renewed energy and resolute determination, not only to survive, but to live and thrive. We remember the horrors that befell our peoples during the Saipho, the Armenian genocide, the Greek genocide at the hands of the Ottoman Turkish government. We also remember the Simele massacre, the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, the Azerbaijani aggression against Artsakh, and the destruction of civilization in Nakhichevan. We remember to safeguard the truth, and not just for its own sake, but truth in the service of justice. As long as it may take, the arc of history does eventually bend towards justice, and that justice we shall receive. Through our activism, our determination, and our unity, we have been chipping off one brick at a time from the thick wall of denial of the Turkish government, and will not rest until truth and justice are served for our nations. From remembrance to action. From remembrance to action. That's my call to all of you tonight. To continue educating, raising awareness, advocating, motivating, and activating more and more people to help us carry the torch of justice on our march ahead. Thank you very much.
There you go. Great speech.
Thank you very much.
Well done. You know, I was very impressed when I saw that, but by the time I got out, you guys left or something. I just didn't see you to interview there. Again, thank you very much. If you want to say something, go ahead and we'll close it.
Sure. I mean, thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure. I would just call on all of our compatriots, on all Armenians who are watching, to be engaged, to be involved, to be active civically. It's your duty and your responsibility as a citizen, and you, even on an individual capacity, can make all the difference. And if there's anything we can help from the ANCA Western Region Office or through our local chapters, our doors are always open. You can call us, email us, visit us on our website or at the office. We're always happy to see you and get you all the information you need to get involved politically and otherwise. So thank you again, and all the very best.
Armen Sahakyan, thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you, sir.